Do you feel like the general sentiment or the general hope out there is a feeling that AI will reduce complexity?
Oh, that's definitely a see, you're bringing a dilemma up yourself, right? So the hope is it will, but it seems to be not lowering our job loads. It seems to be increasing the job load, right? It seems to be bringing more on our plates, and the cognitive load. We seem to be like as we're trying to offload, but we're getting more cognitive load, right? There's one side,
Right.
the whole
Actually,
AI.
I think like what I see is that we offload so that way we can take on more complex, more experiments. So like we're leveling up or trying to level
Exactly.
up.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that perspective on different user levels and different knowledge levels, how AI is like a magnifier, right? It does help like a newbie accelerate and close some of the knowledge gap, but more seasoned, experienced people, the way they get to use AI, the type of questions they can ask, the feedback they can give, takes them even to further heights. Now, how much is that gap closing between a novice newbie and them trying to catch up on humanity's knowledge, and an expert taking the bar keeps raising? So I do think overall we're pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and intelligence, right? So in the one of my professors during my PhD shared a story on how like what you're doing PhD is just imagine humanity's knowledge as a sphere, and we're pushing it. You're trying to make this little bump and push it a little bit out further up. And now everybody, you don't have to do a PhD to push knowledge forward, right? You can catch up quickly and push it. So we're definitely raising the bar and the things we understand and explain and so on. But the dilemma is on the other side, we have the whole AI slop thing happening as well, right?
Oh
So there's
gosh,
some
yeah.
we're creating on productivity, but we're also creating some types of productivity. And I think it's all in flux. The mud is in the water, the dirt is in the air. It's gonna take years, if not decades, for this to settle down.
It's interesting. I just came back from my godson's graduation and he's very smart. I mean, I'm not just biased. He's very smart. And he like basically he got into Stanford and he has applied for a job at a very well recognized company and actually has a chance at getting it. And he's like, well, if I get that, I probably will just not finish my degree. And like, because, and he's got a good argument. Like, he's, I think, a little unusual in that, like, if he gets it, it'll be a job where, like, it almost wouldn't make sense to spend your time getting a degree. Like, it would, like, set him up for life. But we were talking about this and he's like, a lot of people feel like a lot of people in my generation feel this way. Like with AI, like, is there a benefit to actually finishing the degree? And which I had a response to that, but what's your response to that? Because I think there are a lot of people out there sort of grappling with that. And like you and I are both doctors. We've obviously value education. We spend a lot of time doing it. And I feel like education changed my brain. It just totally changed how I see the world because of how I process the world. What's your response to the young people who are thinking about this like sort of reduction in the barriers with information that are available now?
Yeah, I try to keep an open mind, open to possibilities mindset, and want to be mindful of the classic things that our parents did to us or our grandparents did to them, and not to repeat the cycle, right? So the idea is that how do we pass on good values and ways of operating to the next generation? And I'm open to the possibility that it might be different than how I learned and got it. So clearly I'm very much pro education and heads down and working a lot. Yet I'm open that things might change. And so on one side, like some people will continue their education and invest more time, and some people will go down on different paths and entrepreneurial paths and creator paths and so on. There are some paths opening that was not available to us. So just I don't have an answer. I'm just if I'm thinking about my son, if he came and said I'm not going to go to university, how would I feel? I would not feel good probably. I would ask why. What are the options and what is he looking for? I would generally I would be open to the idea if there's something in place. Is it a year of travel? Is it a year of experience? Is it a year of if I'm seeing some entrepreneurial or creator paths that he's pursuing, and if it's aligned with again the story of John Lennon, right? They asked him in his childhood what he wanted to be, and he said, "I want to be happy." And the story goes the teachers laughed at him and said, "No, that's not that's not a life choice. I think that's the ultimate life choice if it's going to make him happy or not. So it's hard to say, right? Don't want to jump to conclusions. And I think that's why a lot of the AI leaders are talking about how AI is going to open the one person entrepreneur, the one person organizations, and we're seeing the trend on the last 50 or 20 unicorns in the last 2 3 years, and how much they had way fewer people than they used to have. So clearly, the rules of the game are changing, and we all have to keep an open mindset.
I was thinking like in terms of that's a good answer. Thank you. I was thinking in terms of like kind of this conversation about complexity in that because AI is there, what is the value of like a higher education? And I think it goes to what you were sort of leaning towards, which is why it got triggered in my brain, you know, tying this back to that conversation is there still is an advantage to having a schema. Like, yes, the barriers to information have been pulled down, but if you don't have a schema to sort of stack it into, it's hard to leverage it. And it's actually hard to even get good information, even though the information is freely available. But then it's also hard to stack it and actually turn it into something that, you know, you could use. And to me, I think that's probably where I would say like the complexity in some regards has gone down, but like you and the complexity of your thinking adding to like the information that you can pull out of AI, I think that education or that structured thinking that education gives you, I think is what kind of creates this gap between the people who are just coming in, you know, at the lower levels, less experience, less education, whatever it is, versus the people who have been doing it for a while, have an education. And I mean, I could be completely biased, right? Like I'm sitting here as somebody who has a schema, but I see the difference. I know me before education, and I know me after education, and I know how fast I can put the pieces together at a rate that like was not there previously. And I think everybody I know who has had this level of education sort of has a similar outcome in terms of education. So anyway, I was just thinking along those lines.
Yeah, no, great points. I love it. I think so. Just a reminder that I think education floats on a sea of learning. Education is a subsegment of learning, and there are many different ways of learning. And some people learn
Mhm.
from life and from each other, right? So one thing I'm lucky and privileged from my childhood, one thing my old man taught me, he said, like, you will make your own mistakes, but smart people, they learn from other people's mistakes. If you can learn from others' life experiences, you'll save yourself some time. And you got to do mistakes regardless, but if you can learn, you'll do some less mistakes. So
Yeah,
that was ability to learn regardless of the situation, which created my lifelong learner mindset. Still till this day, doesn't matter how many books I wrote and businesses I open, I have my annual learning plan. I have things that I'm studying and learning and going to. I'm sitting in the student seat in many programs and still taking certificates. I'm upskilling myself on AI skills, AI strategy, AI culture. Because there's one thing I know in the AI topic as well. This can't be a topic that we talk about to others. It's something that we're going to have to role model ourselves, and where we take humanity to. We can't just. And some of the research I did on culture, for example, what brings self actualization, the workplace, is one of the main factors among many levers. It was leadership role modeling. And the qualitative statements where many people said, I'm sick and tired for working that leaders that tell us one thing and do something else. Or people saying, I
Mhm.
want to work for leaders that walk the walk, talk the talk. So for me, that was a reminder that, like, in where we're going to take humanity and the ethics of AI, the evolution of workplace culture, like, we got to role model it. So we got to upskill ourselves at any age, whether it's a faculty or a degree or a university, it doesn't matter. Just got to keep learning.